Good morning and happy, what the hell day is it? Thursday to you? Is it Thursday? Happy Thursday to you, guys who are out there. As you guys can tell, I'm still here in Orlando. Going to catch a flight out later today. But first and foremost, Happy New Year to everybody. I hope everyone had a safe one. And I hope you guys are ready for a 2026 that promises to have a ton of action starting today with some news that I just put out there on X, put out there on Orange Bloods. We got some breaking news for you guys to cover. Texas, Steve Sarkisian, he's already hit the ground running. He's retained two key staff members. We're going to talk about those guys, Chris Jackson and Brandon Harris. We still have the game to talk about from yesterday and recapping all those things as we had a few hours to think about that. And then, of course, the transfer portal opens tomorrow on Friday. Whew, we got a ton of things going on. All right. So, hey, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. It is 2026. Time to start off the new year right. Make sure you go out there and get your greens and your black eyed peas. All right. And your cornbread. All right. Make sure you get all that. But just if you don't know what I'm talking about, just do it and you'll thank me in 2027 when we cross over. So, Sark, wasting no time. We already know. He said my audio's on and off. Hold on. All right, let me know if my audio is not good because I don't. Unless I just need to do this. Now, if I just need to do this and hold it the whole time, I have no problem doing that. You just guys let me know what's working, what is not working. But Sark is wasting no time. And look, we know the transfer portal is right around the corner. We know that thing is, but Sark has also made sure from a retention standpoint, staff standpoint, that hey, we're going to make sure we have the best staff going into 2026. Now, I don't believe these deals were done overnight, right? Probably there's some things that were happened, right. If this is way better, okay, perfect. I'll just keep it up here. It's not a problem. It's a microphone, so so that's probably how it should be done. So thank you for that. By the way, I'm just retweeting something to let people know that I'm on air. If only in 2026 I had a live producer. That would be an amazing thing. Let's speak that into existence. All right. Here we just let me just do this right quick. And boom, boom. All right, good. And so I did. There was two things that were up. And thanks, guys. I'm glad we're good now. Two things that were up in the air heading into 2026. So kind of the tail end of 2025, which was Chris Jackson, Rodolfo's favorite receivers coach. Because I don't know how Rodolfo starts off the show by talking about Jay Witt. We got Chris Jackson, and then of course Brandon Harris. I'll do them one by one, but nonetheless, one of the things I found out is that Chris Jackson has been re-signed to a 2-year deal, which is very common for any of the assistant coaches who are here. It's interesting because he was hired in 2023, so he kind of ends up being a little bit off cycle with some of these other coaches who was there. His contract was set to expire at the end of this season, so basically sometime into February. And Sark had a kind of decision to make. For an important position, a receiver's position. What are we going to do? Can't go into the portal with a receivers coach that is or is not going to potentially be around. Like, you don't want that kind of uncertainty. And again, they portal wise, he was hired in January of a few years ago, and they had hey, bring him back, or do you guys go somewhere else now? What made this one a little interesting from people who I spoke to behind the scenes, I think I told you guys a couple of weeks ago, this was a situation to monitor, to keep an eye on. So I don't think it should catch anybody. Thank you, Tucker. I don't think it should catch anybody off guard. That there was also some teams that were sniffing around as relates to Chris Jackson. I think I previously mentioned Ohio State had an opening. Florida had an opening. Ohio State coach went to USF. Florida obviously has staff changes. And there was a third program that I can't remember which one I mentioned, but there was a third one that was sniffing around there. So now you got these teams that are sniffing around with your receivers coach. You got the portal that's getting ready to open. Also, it may not have been a huge factor, but from things that I do know behind the scenes is that I do know that Chris Jackson also has a really good relationship with a guy like Ryan Wingo, who, listen, has kind of emerged into their number one guy and things to that effect, right? So there is that conversation. Okay, well, what are you guys going to do? So on and so forth. And I was hearing things behind the scenes, and I wasn't quite sure how the thing was 100% going to play out. What it's going to look like from a salary position or titles. But at the end of the day, Sark viewed him enough. Viewed him enough. And why is everyone? I'm in my teams here. I'm looking at my teams chat. I got distracted for a second. What is this one? What is everyone? I just want to make sure I'm not missing something that everyone's talking about. A Louisville running back, Isaac Brown, is going to enter the transfer portal. Something to keep an eye on as well. Hayes Fawcett putting that out there through 2 seasons. He's totaled 2,057 rushing yards and 18 TDs. So when we start having a conversation about running backs, keep that one in mind as well. So anyway, that happened there. So they end up keeping him around. And look, overall, I think the thing that you can say about it is that throughout his tenure here, he's been as relates to the running back position. Where's the stuff that I posted, by the way? Where is my article? What is going on? But nonetheless, he's doing the stuff that you could say that, hey, since he's been here. Here we go. Here's my article right here. Since he's been here, you could say he's worked with. I'm very key on that. Like he's worked with an Xavier Worthy. He's worked with an Adonai Mitchell. He's worked with a Matthew Golden, and Matthew Golden becomes a first-round pick, right? So there is some value to that. When you start looking at the resume here, one of the things that was really interesting as relates to Chris Jackson was here's a guy that was coming in from the NFL. Can he recruit? Right? Can he recruit? He's got a reputation for developing guys, but can you be a recruiter on this level? And what he's done, what we've seen is at the end of the day, he's just fine. He goes and gets Khalid French, Michael Terry, Dalen McCutcheon, a lot of these guys that we had a chance to see yesterday, finally, right? But thank you, Sammy. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Look at you guys. Y'all boosting my confidence in 2025. Appreciate you, Sammy. But when so you look at what he's been able to do from recruiting perspective, and you say to yourself, okay, recruiting wise, and look, I understand sometimes people are going to say that it's NIL involved. So how much of these guys recruiting? Like at the end of the day, the money's guys. So then there's the relationship factor that kind of plays into that. And so they're able to, he's gotten a great job as a recruiter. He was named after last recruiting cycle. He was named the Rivals recruiter of the year for being able to get Lockett, French, Terry, and McCutcheon, right? And so it was actually came down between him and Kenny Baker. And then he ended up getting the award. So, you've got a guy who's been solid, and you've got the guy with, who's still working with Ryan Wingo. We just know, look, Ryan Wingo shows flash. All know what Ryan Wingo needs to work on in the offseason, which is he's got to get, a little bit more consistent with that pass catching thing. We see it sometimes with young players, and it's not, he's like how young running backs fumble. We see that with Ryan Wingo. And Sark, to his credit, Sark went out and really discovered, hey, the best thing we can do with Ryan Wingo is just get him those screen passes. Right? If we just get him those screen passes, they use the kind of design for running backs, but we can get him those screen passes and then just let him be athletic. We'll just find ways, creative ways, right? He wasn't forcing as relates to Ryan Wingo. So we saw them release the emergence of Ryan Wingo, who finishes a shade above below 1,000 yards this season. I think I looked it up this morning. He had if ESPN had updated it correctly, 54 receptions for 830 touchdowns this season, right? So you look at a guy that, hey, comes close to being 1,000-yard guy. If Texas is in the playoffs and they're playing in multiple games, he might be 1,000-yard guy. Emmett Mosley has dealt with injuries, right? So you don't know what you really have with that. And look, I think we know that Texas will go into the transfer portal. They'll go out, they'll get some guys, right? And so they'll give Chris Jackson more things to work with, more toys to work with, right? So I think Sark goes and makes the good decision as relates to that. I think, Sark usually feels pretty good about the offensive side of the ball. He's working on the defense. So he's able to retain him. The second person that he was able to re-sign and retain and give a new contract to is Brandon Harris, the Texas general manager. Harris gets down. You guys remember Harris gets that job in 2024, and it's interesting because I kind of being the unofficial public defender for Brandon Harris is after Oklahoma went out and hired Jim Nagy, right? And everyone was like, well, Oklahoma's got the home run hire as relates to the GM, and what do they have here at Texas, right? And so so and some of that may have been on this channel. By a show that follows mine at noon. Not mentioning any names. Chad Hastings, I've kept him. Not mentioning anybody's names, not trying to call out anybody, but there was a question of, okay, well, what does Brandon Harris really do? What does Brandon Harris bring to the table? And one thing we know, the one thing Brandon Harris does extremely well is, sometimes you got to have the bad guy, right? And have somebody who's willing to play the role of villain. So not everybody wants to play that role. Sometimes people just want to be light, okay? And in the GM role, it's hard to be light. It's hard to be light, right? And so it's interesting because no, you have to be able to tell people no. And the one thing, to Brandon's credit, and it's not an easy job, right? It's almost like being a salesperson, right? You got to tell people no, and people don't necessarily like salespeople, right? But the salespeople understand, like, you got to block that out. More times than you ever get told yes, but you're okay with that portion of it, and that's what Brandon's done. He's been willing to play the villain. He's been willing to play the bad guy, but he's doing it in the protection of Texas and protection of the NIL money that they have. And look, somebody mentioned something to me recently, and it really struck a nerve. And I was like, damn, this kind of makes a lot of sense, right? When they were talking to me about like Brandon, and they're like, look, at the end of the day, if every player on your team wants $1 million, you would have an $85 million roster, which is pretty damn hard to do, right? So no one has that, right? So you have to tell people no, which means that everybody's coming to you and asking for money. You have to be the bad guy that says you can't get this, you can't earn that, right? Or you have to be the person that goes to the Mannings and say, hey, we need you guys to take a little bit of a pay cut here. Why? Well, honestly, the reason why is that when Quinn Ewers was here, his agent generated all the money. And that's how he got paid the NIL. They didn't take NIL. So we need you to kind of do a little bit more what Quinn did, have your people work on your behalf, as opposed to, these are hard conversations to have. But Brandon Harris is willing to do that. And he's willing to do that under the blessings, with the blessings rather, of Steve Sarkisian, right? Without him. And so when you have like the comparisons of him with other GMs across the country, he fits perfectly what Sark wants to do. And here's the one thing you got to always know about Sark. Just, you got to know he's going to be going into what, year 6? And if you don't know, the guys are all on the same page as relates to this, is that Sark is a person who keeps a really close circle. His inner circle is his inner circle. To his credit, they say loose lips sink ships. All loose lips on his staff. And when you are in that inner circle, I'm talking about that lunch bunch kind of folk, right? When you're like that, he will trust you until the day is the day is done, right? Up and leave kind of thing. And Brandon has become one of those guys who's in that inner circle, right? He's become one of those guys that Sark leans on, Sark trusts. Brandon has, I think Brandon's got like a master's degree, right? He's actually really well versed in everything standpoint, but it's up to him to figure out, okay, as we go into, the NIL free agency, right? How much do we have to spend? How much are guys worth? How much should we pay for guys who want to have retention? One of the reasons you saw guys going to the transfer portal, one of the reasons you saw guys going, he's entering the transfer portal. Portal doesn't officially open until tomorrow. But one of the reasons you're seeing guys going into the portal from Texas, that you got guys asking for money, that Texas is like, and Brandon and Sark are saying, we're not going to spend. We're just not going to do that. I don't know if you saw, Sark kind of his frustration about dealing with some of these agents and what they are. But he's right. Like, some of these people aren't certified, and some of these people aren't, certain things. And hold on, I got this. I might have to take this one. Let me see if this one fires up, because if you hadn't seen it, this really correlates with the conversation that we're having right now. Hold on one second. So yeah, listen, let me play this for you. If you did not see this, and this plays into the Brandon Harris thing on Texas football, they put that out on their X site, but I'm not stealing content, because the Cheez It Bowl put all of Sark's material up here, but it just makes it. So let me share this screen. I think this is a good one for us as we have kind of this Brandon Harris conversation. All right, let me put this and then play this here for you guys.
Yeah, no, I think it's all so strategic, right? Because it's one about need, it's two about money, and the cost, and where's the market, and which agent you're dealing with. There's some agents that are rational, and there's some that this is their first time ever being an agent. I don't even know if they're licensed to be agents, but all of a sudden they get to be agents, because we have no certification process in college football. Or in the NFL, you have to be certified. In college football, it might be their college roommate, their freshman year, who's their agent right now. And this guy's throwing numbers at you, and it's like, we can't even deal with this. Like, you just move on. And so it's unfortunate, and we'll get there in college football, but right now it's a tough situation. That being said, although there's so many factors that come into what you're trying to do, what are our needs, what are our luxuries, right? Those are two different things. And then trying to find the right mix and the right fit, because we can't lose sight of some of these kids that we signed out of high school either. Like, we got a pretty good running back coming in by the name of Derek Cooper that we're excited about as well. And so, again, we've got to have our list of needs, our list of wants, and our list of luxuries, and then what's the dollar sign next to all that, okay? And then what's the bottom dollar from an organizational standpoint? And the idea that I can sit up here in 2025 and talk about money and players and things is pretty crazy, right? From where we've gotten to where we were 4 or 5 years ago to where we are today. But that's the reality of the situation of college football right now, and that's where we are. Again, I think there's nothing wrong with that. We just got to tighten it up, and hopefully we can get there sooner rather than later. Because again, I'm probably going to be on the phone with an agent today that's going to throw a number at me that I'm going to be like, good luck. I hope you get it. If you don't, call us back, but I can't do that number.
By the way, one of the realest things that Sark has said since he's been here that last sentence, I wish I could put on a t-shirt. Like I love that last sentence by Sark, right? So anyway, that correlates. I just wanted to use that as an example, right? That correlates with what I was trying to say as relates to Sark and Brandon. And look, and they have to work hand in hand, and Sark's got to have a guy he says I can trust when we say like, hey, this guy ain't worth it, then this guy is not worth it, or this guy is worth it, then this guy is worth it, right? And so look, these guys, look, Sark talked about it like, hey, I've been talking, had to talk to agents, right? It's crazy, right? It's crazy that you're not talking to the players, you talk to the agents, and the agents are working behind the scenes all the time. But in the NFL, there's a certain amount of agents. Like it literally is the wild, wild west of guys who just random people who like, y'all could be a representative. There's nothing stopping Rodolfo. There's nothing stopping like any of you guys out there, and like that's what you guys want to do. So having a GM that will work with Sark, I think that at the end of the day, Sark has his guy. Sark has his guy. Sark has the guy that he's working, he believes in, and it's kind of one of those things like you can be in a relationship, right? And you can look at what somebody else has, and it's like that might work for that person, but it may not work for you, right? And so I think that at the end of the day, Sark is saying, whatever it is, this what everybody else does, what Cal does, what Oklahoma does, what North Carolina does, y'all can have it. But this is what I have. And then also the last thing, I'll put a ribbon and bow on the Brandon Harris conversation is that, like Chris Jackson, there were also some teams that were sniffing around on him and potentially hiring him. Sark is not doing something simply because, oh, I've just got to make sure that you don't go somewhere else. Like Sark don't roll like that. Sark kind of he's cool, but he ain't gonna be punked by any stretch of the imagination. He's only going to have you if you bring value to the program, and that's what Brandon Harris does. Brings a ton of value, ton of wealth, ton of experience, and look in the ability to be the bad guy. That's just a lot of things as well. But nonetheless, when you also look at what they've been able to have, and look, at the end of the day, they can hang their hat on 3-10 win seasons. That won't be something that's insignificant when it's all said and done. A team that some may have said should have made the playoffs, right? So at the end of the day, Sark has at least put the start on. Staff is shored up, and now it's about them attacking the portal, which they'll do tomorrow. And so we're clear. This is the portal officially opens tomorrow. So all the people who you have heard portal, I'm going to enter the portal, I'm going to enter the portal. Well, their names can't officially be listed in the portal until January 2nd, right? So everything is just an announcement. It's like signing day, right? So someone may verbally commit. So that's what you got to look at is people have voted into the portal. Your signing day, aka portal day, aka entrance day, that's tomorrow. And so what you'll probably have, look, there's going to be people who slip underneath the cracks, who we have not heard about, who we have not spoke to, or anything like that. But those guys are going to enter the portal. From a Texas perspective, I haven't heard anything that's going to be shocking. Typically, the people who are most eager to find a homes, like LaFowles or Wisner, those guys usually announce early. But typically, we're just being honest, the good players, they already kind of have an idea where they're going. Like these deals are kind of already done. I used this analogy before. I don't know if y'all remember, but I've used this analogy before. It's kind of like when you remember the NFL had and remember free agency used to start at midnight. Some of you guys might remember that. I did NFL for years. And so free agency would start at midnight, and by 12:05, there would be deals that announced. But technically, you weren't supposed to engage in conversation with anything with a representative until midnight. But you wait until midnight, it's too late, right? It's like waiting till the club or the bar is about to close, and you'd like, well, maybe now's the time to ask her for her phone number. Maybe you should have done that a few hours ago, right? So nonetheless, that's what happens, right? And for bars, maybe church. So before we exited out the building, maybe you should have when she was talking to such and such there in the pews, you should have said, hey, sister Beverly. Okay, Beverly's a little bit too old. I don't know. Sister Beverly, you try to get a paycheck at that point. You try to have somebody pay your bills if you go after Sister Beverly. Nonetheless, these there's been lots of conversations, and then look, when guys go in, there's going to be some activity and some kind of like how free agency was where I envision it. We're going to hear guys are in the portal, and tomorrow afternoon / evening we're going to hear about, and a guy is committed to this program, right? You want to be able to put pen to ink when it's all person. Like we don't have time for visits and all these kind of things. We just got to get you inked, and we got to get you taken care of, right? And so so anyway, just get ready for that. Man, listen, let me just I know I gotta go. Let me just say this about the game yesterday, and I'm gonna have more thoughts on it this week. Okay, let me just allow me just to say the Rodolfo's such a hater. Rodolfo, why? Dude, can I just say this, Rodolfo? It is 2026. I need you to take your hater blockers off. Rodolfo, it's 2026. We just crossed in. You're supposed to leave that hate back in 2025. You ain't got you don't got one New Year's resolution, Rodolfo. My resolution for you is I need you to stop hating. Anyway, real quick on this on the game. It ended up somewhat playing out the way I was hoping, which a lot of young people would have played. I'm like, I wanted to see KJ Lacey. Didn't happen. That being said, I thought Arch Manning was a badass. I talk about bad ass Superman kind of performance. I don't care that it was not a playoff game. That was a Michigan team that was playing their asses off. That was a power forward team. That was a great game. That was really, really a good game. I gotta say that was an entertaining game, to say the least. I gotta be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest with you. I got, I'm learning in my older age that sometimes I need to admit wrong, and sometimes I need to admit wrong a little bit sooner than I do. As a person who really was kind of like lukewarm on the whole Cheez-It Bowl, Citrus Bowl experience, gotta say it was kind of badass to watch. I liked watching Arch, and definitely like watching Christian Clark. We'll have more conversations about him in the upcoming months as we go into the off season. I love Ty Anthony Smith. That dude looks like a baller. Top. I don't know Coach Top has been talking about Ty Anthony for the past few years, and he's the first one that was high on Ty Anthony. And even when Ty Anthony wasn't producing, I can tell you for sure Top was the guy who was banging the table saying, hey, Ty, you called it. You absolutely called it. Don't anybody ever doubt that. He absolutely called it as a listen to Ty Anthony. It was fascinating and fun to watch him and see him play. Cade Phillips was doing his thing out there. I loved what I saw from Jelani McDonald and Warren Robertson. Saw a little bit of Zena that was out there. Brad Spence was out there. Like there was some things that I saw. And of course, Colin Simmons. I mean, come on. I mean that's just low lying fruit. If I gotta go and say, oh yeah, Colin Simmons was balling. Colin Simmons is Colin Simmons. Like so, I was excited to see that. Was Jack Endries had that great touchdown. We'll see if he comes back or not. Is he going to do the NFL thing? I'm sure he's got some time. My gut on this one tells me and Jack Andrews wanted to leave, Jack Andrews would have left. It's kind of like, again, I always use relationships as examples because they're very relatable to everybody. It's kind of like, you're in a relationship and you guys are having like a disagreement, and it's like, okay, we're done, but like no one leaves the house. Because no one realistically wants it to end. I feel like that's Jack Andrews. I feel like Jack Andrews is like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do this relationship anymore, but I'll go to Orlando and play in the Citrus Bowl. That don't strike me as a guy that's looking like I want to get the hell out of here because I feel like I need to get into the NFL. I feel like that's a guy that wants to be talked into coming back. So, but we'll see what happens with him. But overall, I loved what I saw from the bowl game. I love the competition, but I think overall, the big takeaway is Arch Manning look like a baller out there. That as I said in the post game show last night, that Arch Manning probably beats Ohio State by 2 touchdowns. Like, keeping it real, that Arch Manning beats Ohio State by 2 touchdowns, right? That Arch Manning, there's not a question in the world what happens in that Florida game. So maybe we didn't see that Arch Manning early in the year, but guess what? If we're seeing that Arch Manning at the end of the year, and that's the Arch Manning that carries into 2026, listen, yeah, all you put everything back on the table. Yes, re-up on the expectations, re-up on the high hopes, re-up on all those kind of things, like re-up on all. Oh, yeah. And by the way, David, you're absolutely correct to point that out. The other thing we have to wait on is what happens with Gooseby, and if Goosby's going to come back. Now, my gut tells me, again, if you participated in a bowl game that's a non-playoff, had the opportunity to go pro, David, I just put your stuff on the screen. If you have the opportunity to go pro and you played in a non-playoff game, my gut tells me that person wants to come back, because the people who don't, people who are not playing in a non-playoff game, the majority are not. Now, look, Trevor may shock us. It may just say, I just wanted to do that one more. I just told myself that I really needed a box of Cheez-Its. But come on. The reality is he's probably made up in his mind that I want to come back. I want to be in if it's a non-playoff game, there's no incentive at that point, right? So my belief is, if I had to put money on it, my money, now Andrews could go either way. I'd put, let's say I had $100 to spend at Vegas. I would put the majority of it on Gooseby coming back, and I would put the rest of it on Andrews. I'd probably put 70 on Gooseby, 30 on Andrews. I feel like I'm going to hit in either one. Now, if there's the bigger payout, I might take a little bit of a risk. But anyway, we'll see what happens with those guys as well. All right, listen. What's today? Thursday? Okay, I don't have anything else. I don't have another show today. All thing else I got to do is get the heck out of here before they kick me out of my room, get back, and then I'll have a show ready for you guys tomorrow as we get ready. Listen, man, we're here. We made it. We've made it. No matter what we went through in 2025, we've made it. Today is a day for a fresh start. If people tell you stuff about don't make New Year's resolution, that's so hokey, blah, 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 man, them. Do what you want to do, okay? Whatever starts. So go out there, have a fantastic day. Go out there, get your greens, get your collard greens, get your black eyed peas, get your pork, get your cornbread. If you don't know what all that means, look up some of the southern quote unquote good luck things, some of the southern traditions. But I know many of y'all are going to be out there. I'm going to find myself a restaurant to get all my stuff as well. So make sure you guys go out there and do it. Have a fantastic day. And always remember, I said, live each day like it's your last, because one day it will be. So go out there, do something nice for yourself. Do something to splurge, man. And look, whatever happened in 2025, let's leave fresh to start new. Listen, Rodolfo's going to be a hater. We can't control that. But for everybody else who has hope in their life, let's make sure we do something special. All right. Hey, guys, if Southwest doesn't have a billion delays. I'll see you guys on Friday morning. Until then, y'all take care. This is the last from the Orlando hotel for me. Happy Cheese Bowl victory. We have much more